Hi, everybody. For anyone who doesn't know me, my name's Becky Lemke. I'm the Education Coordinator at Cornerstone's Career Learning Center, and for the last 12 years, I've been South Dakota's State STAR Trainer and also a member of the STAR National Project Team. I understand there are some questions about whether or not people who have previously been involved in STAR training should take part in this newest round of STAR training that South Dakota is sponsoring through the professional development team. And hopefully today I'll be able to answer some of those questions for you. When we're done, if you do still have additional questions, you can always reach out to me or to Kim Olson, and I'll give you our contact information at the end of the webinar. All right, so South Dakota STAR training for 2019 is actually part of a revised STAR training that we're going to talk about. But to get us started here first, I want to just mention that we've got some background with STAR, and many of you might be familiar with this. If you are, bear with me. If not, it's always a good refresher. So STAR is ongoing professional development to help you implement evidence-based reading instruction, or EBRI, in your program. All of the techniques that you learn in STAR training are evidence-based, which means there's evidence that those techniques are effective. Most of our adult education teachers don't have degrees in reading, and if they do, a lot of times their degree is related to the K-12 system and not specifically to adult learners. When teachers finish STAR training, they're able to say with confidence that they know the most effective ways to teach reading to intermediate level adult readers. And the STAR project focuses on intermediate level adult readers, those with TABE scores that put them in the grade 4 to 8.9 range, or NRS levels 3 and 4. Because those are still, sadly, the biggest group of learners that we have in adult ed in the nation, nationwide, as well as in South Dakota. And because the needs of those readers in those levels are more complex. So we talk about STAR being evidence-based. The research indicates that intermediate level readers just are not a homogeneous group. Their needs are varied. And this is why we struggle as instructors to help them move out up into those upper level reading skills. Because the STAR project focuses on intermediate level readers, it's important that teachers participating in STAR training have access to intermediate level readers throughout the training. Now, one of the questions that we've had is, do the teachers participating in training have to be reading teachers as their primary work assignment? And no, that's not necessarily the case, because especially in some of our programs where there's maybe only a couple of teachers, it might be important for both teachers to be STAR trained, even though one teacher doesn't teach reading as their primary assignment. That way, you know, especially while we're talking about things like diagnostic assessment and grouping students for learning, if everybody in the program is kind of more well-versed in at what evidence-based reading instruction is and the needs for evidence-based reading instruction from an instructor standpoint, it can be really helpful from a programmatic standpoint for everybody to be on the same page. So as long as a teacher would have access to intermediate level readers throughout the training, so they'd be able to try out some of the things that we're talking about in the training, and they would have students to work with to practice some of the skills that they're learning, that's all that's required. We also talk about evidence-based reading instruction and that evidence base. One of the things I think is important to remember is STAR has been around a long time, and that doesn't mean that it has stayed static. In fact, it's updated constantly. That evidence base is updated. There's always research happening out in the field on reading for adult learners. And as a result, the STAR project makes a true effort to stay abreast of that new research. We have a lead researcher, her name's Mary Beth Curtis, and one of her jobs every year as part of the STAR project is to go out and review all of the new research on reading for adults that's been published out in the field, and to see if what we're doing in STAR training is still consistent with that evidence base. As the evidence changes, we need to change the training. Trainers are required to review that new evidence every year. We have a required training for the trainers once a year where Mary Beth Curtis presents any new evidence and talks to us about what that means in terms of what we should be doing in our training. And small changes have been made to the training on an ongoing basis to reflect that new evidence as it's published. One of the biggest changes that's happened to STAR as a result of some of the evidence that's come out, but also just from the standpoint that it's hard to get people together for such an intensive training experience, is that we've changed the way the training is delivered. So STAR used to be 6 face-to-face training institutes. It was 6 days, full days of training where instructors would learn concepts and then they'd go home and they'd integrate those lessons learned into their programs. The new hybrid training package has taken all of that content learning and turned it into interactive online learning modules. There's 30 interactive modules and portfolio assignments in the new training, which provide that instruction and practice. And then there's 2 face-to-face day-long meetings that are more problem-solving sessions for some of those implementation issues that programs face when they're working on putting evidence-based reading instruction into their programs. So it's a flipped classroom approach where you're accessing your content from that training through those online modules and learning at your own pace whenever you want to in that online setting. And then when we get together face to face, we really want to dig into some of the deeper issues that people have when they're trying to make really complex change in their programs and when they're trying to implement something that is so complex. So one of the things that I think is really valuable from this is that your practice happens as you do the learning. Before, we would learn all about diagnostic assessment all at once in 2 days, and then you'd go home and you'd try and remember everything that we told you, and you'd get some students and you'd try and do all the diagnostic assessments. Now, and I'll show you when we go into the online toolkit how this works, you do a piece at a time, and then you have an assignment at the end of each of those modules. So the practice for each of the learning pieces comes more immediately. And I think it just helps you to really remember what you're supposed to be doing and to really apply that learning from the modules into your real life practice with your students in your classrooms. I talked about the research being continually updated, and one of the most significant reasons for the big changes that we've made to STAR, and one of the reasons that I think is really compelling for people who've been through STAR training before to think about coming back and going through STAR training again now in 2019, is because we've had a lot of research shifts in adult education over the last few years. We've seen shifts due to the college and career readiness standards. And because of the college career readiness standards and the implementation of those standards at a national level, GED 2014 changed pretty significantly in the reading and writing expectations that we have for our students. And we've also had really a large focus, thanks to the implementation of WIOA, on career pathways and preparing our students for post-secondary and employment opportunities. Reading is a huge part of all of those things, and we know that. And when we think about the relationship between STAR and those other federal initiatives like college and career readiness standards and career pathways, one helpful analogy that we've used is to think in terms of a journey. So the college and career readiness standards, the high school equivalency exams like GED, career pathways, are the eventual destinations where our students want to arrive. And the standards describe where we want to take our students, where they want to end up. Our instruction is the car, right? That's what gets us there, the instruction that we provide to those students so that they can build those skills. But there are really so many roads to take with that instruction that sometimes we can get lost with our students, and particularly with those intermediate level readers whose needs are so varied. So STAR, and evidence-based reading instruction, act as our instructional GPS system. They show us a clear instructional path for our intermediate level reading students that leads them to any of the final destinations that they're working towards. And the research really supports some very specific strategies to help us do that. So again, that leads us to some additional changes that have been made in the STAR content, probably since anyone has accessed the training. The STAR project team has worked really hard on the content over the last three or 4 years, and the new content, I think, is really reflective of the kinds of skills that we have to build in our students. It's all housed in an online toolkit that can be found at this web address, star.links.ed.gov. And I'm going to take you in there now, and I'm going to show you a little bit of what I mean in some of the changes that we're seeing. So when you, as a learner, come in, you're going to log in, and I'm actually not going to log in as myself because as a trainer, my system is really messy and convoluted. So I'm going to log in as an Arkansas test user because I don't have my South Dakota test user account yet. And here we are on the Arkansas practice team. You can see in the Arkansas practice team, you've got Arkansas test users 1 and 2, and Arkansas test user 2 has done some work here. The training is split into 3 sections, and the first section is called Evidence-Based Reading Instruction. It provides some background. You can see we're going to do a webinar for Module 2 where we'll all kick off the training together, and then you're going to find out a little bit about evidence-based reading instruction and assessment, and you're going to work on some challenges together as a program. And then you're going to learn about each of the assessment components. I'm going to click here on fluency assessment because fluency assessment is one of the things that's been really hard traditionally for people in STAR training. And one of the main changes that we made in this reiteration of STAR training is a change to fluency assessment to really streamline the process, make it less confusing to the instructors who are doing the assessments, make it a little quicker and easier to work through that oral reading piece of the fluency assessment. And you can see when you get into each of these assessment pieces, you've got a link to click where you're going to watch the module that's going to explain fluency assessment and walk you through this new process for assessing fluency. You're going to see a STAR administrator conducting fluency assessment with a real-life student, and you're going to get some practice in that online module. And then you have an online portfolio, which is where you go to record your own assessment results. So you can see you've got an assignment here that asks you to assess at least 2 students and then answer some reflection questions on the assessments. And it says your team members will be able to see and comment on your results. And we can see here that Arkansas test user 2 actually has assessed a couple of students and has put in some fluency assessments and reflections there. If we click here, we can see we get a little interactive window that opens up. And it shows us we have some students that we can work with. These are the students that Arkansas Test User 2 put in and recorded those assessments. We can add a new student in, we can answer some reflection questions, and then we can move on to the next piece, which would be another assessment, vocabulary assessment in this case. So fluency assessment is one of the big changes that I think is one of the things that makes it worth going through the training again. The other thing I just wanted to call out is, why am I not seeing? The other thing I wanted to call out is that some of the instructional components are also updated. One of the major updates that we have seen is in alphabetics instruction. Alphabetics instruction is another one of those areas that's really difficult for our teachers, our adult ed instructors, because it's really that elementary level of reading instruction. And so many of us, if we do have a degree in English or in reading, we weren't working with elementary level learners before we became adult educators. We were working with our secondary level learners. So alphabetics instruction is one of the places where you're going to see a lot of updated strategies for working with students, and you're going to see some specific lesson plans for working with alphabetics instruction and helping students build those phonics skills, those word analysis skills. And the other major place that we've seen a lot of changes is in the comprehension instruction modules and the approach to comprehension instruction. Because of the college and career readiness standards, because of all those changes made where you're talking about working with complex text, doing that close reading, because of the changes made to the GED, where our students are required to be able to read so critically and watch for evidence in the reading that they're doing. We wanted to make that comprehension instruction really impactful for students and really focused on the kinds of skills that they need to use when they're working on their GED preparation and when they're looking at going into post-secondary school. So the comprehension instruction section, again, contains different strategies than the ones you've seen in STAR training before. A lot of lesson plans that are there for you to get you started on the kind of instruction that will help our students build those comprehension skills that they really need. And then the last piece that I wanted to show you is the discussion forum. Because a lot of this training does happen in virtual reality on your computer, we wanted to include a discussion forum where participants could really talk about issues that they're experiencing, share experiences, share challenges, share success stories, and ask questions of the trainers. So that discussion forum is a place where you can, as a user, and you can see as I hover over the added discussion, you can post to the entire state group if you want to, or you can just post to your program team. So for example, if I was a user in South Dakota, because I work at Cornerstones, I would see post to South Dakota, or I would see post to Cornerstone's Career Learning Center. So if I wanted to just ask a question or have a conversation with my colleagues at other Cornerstones offices who are going through STAR training at the same time, I would post to my Cornerstones team. If I want to have a wider discussion with people from all over the state, if I want to get feedback from people from other programs, how are you approaching challenges and how are you working through some of the issues that I'm seeing? Are you having the same issues that I'm having? Then I could post to the entire South Dakota cohort and have a discussion with them. So you're getting feedback and support, you're getting networking opportunities in that online system, in virtual reality, throughout the training. And again, the trainers will also be involved in that discussion forum to provide feedback and insight and answers to questions along the way. There's also a resources section, which again has tons of resources that will help you along the way as you go through the training and learn all the new techniques that have been included as that evidence base has been updated. I really hope that taking this look at South Dakota STAR training for 2019 has helped to answer some of the questions that people had about who should be involved, who is appropriate to be involved in STAR training, and whether or not people who've been previously STAR trained might want to take part. And again, if you have any additional questions, you can always reach out to me at Cornerstones or to Kim Olson at Cornerstones, and be sure to ask any questions that you have. We're here to help. And I'm so excited to do STAR training in South Dakota again. It's been a while. And I think it's something that can really benefit our teachers and our students in the state. So thanks for listening and have a really great day.